Technology has become so advanced that everyone has AI implants in their heads that help with everyday life. But unfortunately, that also means it can be monetized, so Ichika has to deal with dozens of ads the second she steps into a mall. After paying for her premium vision subscription, the ads disappear so Ichika can go on with her day. She is here to help her coworker pick out some jewelry, so she brought her robot or called Amicus assistant, Harold, along as well. Harold has all the latest decision-making software, so he is really helpful when it must have gotten the charisma update too because Ichika's coworker is falling head over heels for him. After a few minutes, the coworker decides to buy a pendant because Harold said it would look good on her. And now that she's made a decision, the shopping trip is over. They walk Ichika's coworker to the train station, and she says she had a lot of fun today, especially with Harold, so she'd love to spend more time with him. She would even oil his drive shaft for him if he wants. But Harold isn't comfortable with where this is going, so he just gives her an awkward handshake. Ichika's coworker then remembers that Ichika was also there for the shopping trip, so she thanks her for the help and apologizes for all the terrible things she said about Ichika on the group chat. But Ichika has no idea how to respond to that, so she just pretends she didn't hear it, and the two go their separate ways. Harold tells Ichika that her coworker probably organized the shopping trip to make up for what happened between them, so while it may have been a little awkward, she seems like she'd be a genuinely good friend. That aside, he asks Ichika why she didn't pick out a pendant for herself while they were at the jewelry store. Ichika says she doesn't want to get a new one because it would remind her of her sister, and she would rather avoid that. Harold is honestly shocked that Ichika is being so honest with him because she usually ignores him. It takes a moment for the system to process what just happened, but he thinks it's a nice change of pace from her usual behavior. Just then, the two of them are approached by a detective, and he says he is here to ask Harold a few questions. Harold is brought to an interrogation room where he is informed that he is suspected of assault and battery, but he knows he did no such thing, so he answers the detective's questions honestly and says he didn't do it. Unfortunately, Detective Brown is hellbent on getting a confession out of Harold, so he leaves the room to talk to his partner. Ichika is here as well because she wants to witness Harold's interrogation, and she doesn't understand why they are keeping him here like this when they have no evidence. They already checked Harold's memory files, and there are no records of him assaulting anyone, so they have no right to keep interrogating him. But Brown says his memory files could have been altered, so it's still possible that he committed the crime. The victims also clearly reported that they were attacked by an amicus, but Ichika says that doesn't mean Harold is the perpetrator. Besides, there are programs installed in Harold's system that strictly forbid him from causing harm to a human, but Detective Brown brings up an old case of an amicus named Steven that lost control and attacked a human earlier this year. There are 3 versions of the amicus's name: Steven, Harold, and Marvin. Steven is currently being held in an analysis pod, and Marvin is just missing, so he is most likely damaged. That means the only amicus unaccounted for is Harold, so Detective Brown is sure that the culprit must have been him. Plus, the fact that Steven attacked a human means Harold should be capable of doing the same since they are made from the same core program. Ichika reminds Detective Brown that Harold works with her in the cybercrime investigation department, but he says that doesn't matter because he has already been given permission to investigate Harold for as long as necessary. Ichika asks to do a brain dive into the victim's head so she can prove Harold's innocence, but Harold is her partner, so Brown says it would be a conflict of interest if he let her do it. There's nothing more Ichika can do, so she is forced to leave the interrogation room without Harold. She meets up with her coworker, and Daria already heard about what happened with Harold, so she is really worried. Ichika tells her she couldn't convince the detective to let Harold go, but she is sure that the allegations are false because Harold would never do something like that. Still, Daria is worried that Harold might get shut down because of this, but Ichika swears that she won't let that happen. Later that night, Ichika heads back to the investigation room, and Harold seems to be doing fine, but his situation hasn't gotten much better. He tells her that Brown is going to be transferring him to prison once he gets back, and he still refuses to believe that Harold is innocent. Ichika tells him that Daria was really worried about him, so she is staying in a hotel nearby until this whole thing is sorted out. Ichika says she can ask the cybercrime department chief to help him out a little, but Harold tells her she doesn't need to worry about him so much. Ichika realizes Harold is oddly calm for someone who is about to be sent to prison, so she asks him if he knows something about the culprit of the crime. They don't have any definitive proof, but it's possible that the culprit could have been Marvin, since he is still missing. It could also have been someone impersonating an amicus, but after thinking about it a little, she realizes that it would be impossible for someone to pull off. Just then, Ichika receives a frantic call from Detective Brown, and he demands to know where she is right now. She tells him she is in the interrogation room with Harold, and after Brown gets there, he asks her if Harold was in here the entire time he was gone. Ichika confirms this, but in case he doesn't trust her, Harold points to the underpaid intern who has been keeping an eye on him for the past few hours. Since Harold was really here the entire time, Brown realizes he has made a terrible mistake, because while he was busy trying to get a confession from Harold, the real culprit attacked another person, and this time, the unfortunate victim was Daria. Daria managed to survive, but she was badly injured, so she is still in a coma right now. But before she was attacked, she managed to send a message to Harold's watch, giving him permission to perform a brain dive on her. Meanwhile, Ichika is in a meeting with all the department leaders, and the chairman is convinced that the attack on Daria must be related to the Petersburg incident that led to her husband, Sozan's death. But the others don't think there's any correlation. Moving on, the chief addresses Totoki, and tells her that even if Harold wasn't the culprit of this incident, it would be a PR disaster once the public finds out that the amicus involved in solving this case is the same model as Stephen who attacked a human earlier this year. So he requests that Totoki immediately shut Harold down. That request is outrageous, so Ichika is about to say something, but Totoki says she'll handle it. She then tells the chairman that he's out of his mind if he thinks she's going to shut Harold down when he hasn't done anything wrong. It's already been established that Harold is not a threat, and any threatening defects in his programming would have been found during their investigation. That may be true, but the chairman reminds everyone that Harold is the first of the latest generation of AI, so he is capable of thinking for himself and has free will to act as he pleases. However, Angus points out that the AI doesn't actually have free will. It's just a very complex program that mimics the idea of a soul, so there are still some things that the program cannot do. As for the case with Stephen, it was discovered that his system had been altered by a programmer named Elias. They think Elias was most likely involved in this incident as well, but be that as it may, they still want Harold to be shut down as a precautionary measure. Totoki still refuses, but Ichika can't stay quiet any longer, so she tells them the department can't afford to lose Harold. She can't do brain dives without him because he's the only one who can keep up with her. She has tried diving with human assistants, but they all ended up as vegetables. Getting rid of Harold would severely hinder the cybercrime department's functionality, so Harold simply cannot be disposed of. The chairman tries to argue, but Totoki points out that their department can easily find clues that will lead them to the culprit, so she wants to have Ichika take over the investigation of the amicus assaults. And the best chance she has at finding a lead is to perform a brain dive on Daria so they can find out who did this to her. Daria is still in a coma, but she already gave her consent and her vitals are stable, so if Doctor gives them the green light to begin the brain dive, Ichika connects one cable between her and Daria and hands the other cable to Harold so the two of them can enter Daria's brain. As Ichika swims through the metaphorical ocean of memories, she spots Daria and she seems like she is in a lot of pain, so she needs to hurry and find the memories of the incident. Eventually, she locates the relevant memories and as Daria was walking down an alleyway, she was confronted by a man in a hood. The man then stabs her in the stomach for no reason and then runs away. Before Daria passed out, she got a good look in her attacker's face and it looked exactly like Harold, but she could tell that it wasn't actually him. So in her last few moments of consciousness, she left a message for the real Harold and asked him to do a brain dive on her. They've gotten all the information they need, so Harold pulls Ichika out of the dive for Daria's safety. He asks the doctor for a status update on Daria's condition, and her heart rate spiked a little from the strain of the brain dive, but aside from that, she should be perfectly fine. Based on what they saw from Daria's memories, Ichika is certain that the culprit was an amicus, and it stands to reason that the amicus in question would be Marvin, but Harold doesn't think that's the case. Marvin has a mole on his left cheek, but the attacker didn't have one, so it couldn't have been him. But then again, it's possible that Marvin could have covered up his mole before the attack. There's not much for them to go off right now, but they did find one major clue because the knife the attacker used to stab Daria had a logo on the handle, and that logo will surely lead them to the identity of the attacker. The next day, Harold and Ichika are out looking for clues together, when Harold receives word that Nikolai has just arrived in the city. Ichika asks him who Nikolai is, so he explains that Nikolai is Daria's brother-in-law, and after he heard about the incident, he decided to come take care of her at the hospital until she wakes up. On an unrelated note, Harold wants to thank Ichika, because he heard that she stood up for him at the meeting, when the chairman suggested shutting him down. Ichika says she wasn't the only one who stuck up for him since Totoki was also against the idea, but the fact that Ichika was on his side makes Harold really happy. It shows that she cares about him at least a little, so he asks her if she's finally warming up to him even though he's an amicus, and while that may be true, she says this doesn't mean she likes him. Back on topic, the emblem they are tracking turned out to be the coat of arms of the Elphinstone College, and the knife was a gift that is given to all graduating students. This means the Elphinstone College is somehow related to the amicus attacks, and that means there's someone they have to go talk to first, a top researcher at Novi Robotics and the person who practically single-handedly created the system from which all the amicus were programmed, Lexi Willow Carter.